Hello and welcome to the Culture CodeCast, a podcast series brought to you by the HRM Committee of the Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Across this series, we've been exploring key forces shaping the future of work and workplaces in India, from culture and well being to leadership, inclusion, and now regulation. Today's episode is titled Understanding India's Labor Codes, What HR Leaders Need to Know. And this is based on the booklet authored by Mr. Ritesh Bhardwaj. Labor law reforms are often seen as complex, even intimidating, but they also represent one of the most significant shifts in how work, employment, and industrial relations will function in India going forward. So, on that note, let me introduce our speaker today. Ritesh is a purpose driven and strategic HR leader with about 18 years of experience across HR policy, industrial relations, organization development, M&A, change management, and leadership development. He's worked closely with promoters as well as global boards in leading Indian and multinational organizations like Pepsi, Cola, Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, Godrej Agrovet, and he's currently serving as the Senior Vice President and Group Head HR at Cello World Ltd. Ritesh is also deeply involved in academia as a guest faculty at TIS and Mumbai University, and he brings a rare blend of practitioner insight and policy depth to this topic. Welcome, Ritesh, to the Culture Codecast. I'm really looking forward to demystifying the labor codes with you today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kaushiki. It's really a pleasure to interact with you.
Super. So let's start with the basic question. Why are these reforms being called the biggest labor reforms since independence? And really, how do they align with India's vision of ease of doing business?
Sure. So India is moving towards a unified. So that's why, if you look at it, the modern labor framework is very much relevant. That balances the worker protection with the business flexibility and economic growth. So these three elements become very crucial. In India, almost 29 labor laws were prevalent since post-independence, and almost like 100 of state amendments which has already took place till now, which made the entire compliance more complex as well as inconsistent, right? Many laws were outdated, and at the same time it was overlapping, difficult to interpret, and especially for the growing businesses like MSMEs, it was very difficult to achieve. By this intervention and the change in the labor laws overall, the government is actually trying to consolidate the existing laws and making it more feasible, making more understandable to the larger population, where it should benefit not only the employer but also looking at the how the future workforce it will be. So hence there are four labor codes which consolidate, considering code on wages, industrial relation code, occupational safety, health and working condition, and on code on social security. The simplifying the entire four labor codes again, which is the motive of this particular change, is like the uniformity and wider coverage, covering each and every sector, making it more clear for people who are practitioner and which will be easier for implementation. This reduce over the period the duplication in terms of by bringing the simplifying in terms of single window registration, and also helping the annual or monthly returns which we do, and provide clear cut definition, making compliance easier, especially for multi-state country like us.
Hmm. Thank you so much. Thank you. This is a very succinct way of putting it, and I know that there's a lot of work coming ahead in terms of the real changes it will bring. On that note, Ritesh, my next question to you is, with the introduction of these codes, what changes should the employers expect in terms of talent hiring, retrenchment, exits, layoffs, and generally managing the different types of workers?
See, at the organization level, what I believe, because I've been doing research, I've been practicing it since 2020 itself. I think we need to realign the entire processes, which are part of the HR as well as the legal framework, which consists of basic from the basic. It will be like appointment letters, HR policies, the standing orders, the wage structures, and the contractor agreements, right? The major change at organization will need to rebalance the basic pay and the allowances, which clearly stated in the code that it should be 50% at least, right? And at the same time, balancing with the allowances, which was earlier much higher than the 50%. This hence it would need the compensation restructuring. It also need to be plugged in terms of the payroll system and policy updates and training, more important, the HRs who will going to implement across the organization. The whole objective is at the organization as well as at the HR level, the organization should be now 100% compliant because it is now simplified.
You spoke very interestingly of training the HR, training the people behind the systems and policies at this point as a very crucial area before we even begin implementing the changes. So if I had to ask you, what are the immediate changes that HR and payroll should be preparing for today with these reforms?
Back to the basics, I believe that's the core. Re-looking at the pre and post impact due to the new labor code, that will be the core work of the HR. Especially to be 100% compliance, I believe each and every HR must look at the overall wages, the restructuring, the compensation, as I earlier said. And more importantly, I believe, which is the very big time fear factor, would be preparing the entire HR team, irrespective of the functions of the vertical, on the new labor code and creating the task force within the HR as well as cross functionals in terms of implementation plan.
I have a sort of a sub question on this, Ritesh, as I hear you, and creating a task force is, I think, a very important step. You're right, and taking it in a systematic way to really go back to basics, as you say. What role does documentation play here? I think it's important that a lot of our HR members listening in might want to know.
So, Kaushiki, I think, see, the new labor code also very clearly indicates that the ways where they are giving an opportunity for each and every employer to have a single window system, right? It makes documentation much easier, right? At the same time, what will happen now, it's, since it is simplified during the audit process, which normally our HR folks always have a fear factor and they are burning the midnight oil along with the auditors, it becomes much easier to show only few documents rather than jumping into multi-fold and multi-year of documents, which make things much more complex whenever there's a role change which happens across the organization, right? Third important piece is if you go through the entire labor code, it clearly also indicates that at the organization level, since there's a lot of technology which will going to help them, so it will not be person specific. It will now become a system specific, and it becomes much easier for any organization to be compliant, and irrespective of the role change and the changes which happens within the organization, right? I think that process itself will move forward.
Thank you so much, Ritesh. To the audience, I'm going to take a moment and remind you all to check out the booklet that has been produced by a lot of labor and research by Ritesh to actually know more about the labor codes and what its implications are. Ritesh,
Thanks, Kaushiki.
Ritesh, I also wanted to actually, bring this at this point, bring this to the employees. There's a lot of clickbait articles. There's a lot of very sensational items that come as excerpts of what this means. And I'm sure there are people who are curious to know how does this impact an employee from their POV. It'll be great if you can share a little bit about that. What are the biggest benefits of the labor codes for an employee?
Sure. So, Kaushiki, the more important aspect which each and every employee should understand, where they are more concerned about today's what exactly their take homes are, whether that will get impacted or not. But also, this particular labor code clearly indicates and it enable an individual to generate lot and lot of accumulated money over the period through their statutory deductions, which is typically PF or ESIC coverage, which gives them benefit of the medical side of it. So I think that's the core. right? Now looking at the in the wider scope and how exactly it has been portrayed in the labor code, it talks about that it will give higher social security, right? Which gives a clear cut wage calculation, improved safety, and formal recognition for a gig workers, which was not present till date. And I'm sure that we all are now using all kind of application where we are surrounded by all our, thank you so much, those gig workers who are making our life much easier, right? Another important piece is, since there are a lot of fear around the salary cuts or job losses, but the reforms are mainly focusing upon how to improve the long-term benefits, right? And at the same time, being complied from the employer side. The focus is on balance, flexibility, and not job insecurity. So I think it is going to safeguard the overall workforce, irrespective of the sectors, which was not earlier present.
Yeah. And I think often, reforms are viewed as very employer centric. So it's very important to bust this myth that it's got its positives. And the positives are in the long run, and it's not just about the short term immediate gains that we're really looking at with these
Yeah.
reforms. Right. Thank you for sharing that, Ritesh. And on that note, I think it's very important to leave the audience with some advice, and especially some of the business leaders, promoters, startup founders, and HR leaders with some advice on how can you actually implement this more successfully? What can you do to be ready to really future proof your organization?
So let me give you a good update, which most of the organizations post 2020, when this code got passed in the parliament, right? And I'm sure that progressive organization, they started implementing it. But at the same time, what has happened that a lot of organizations were waiting for the final go, which happened on 21st of November this year, right? In this particular journey of last 5 years, if you look at it, what has happened, every state, they have already drafted their rules, because the labor code is at the center, which is now act, right? They have already drafted the rules and they have uploaded their state specific rules on their administrative website. So hence, most of the states are already complied and they have indicated that they would like this particular labor code to be implemented in their respective states, right? There is no further delay. So hence, there's a lot of work which is in pipeline. We have to be more in terms of proactive now, in terms of how the plans are in when we are looking at the each and every labor code to be implemented across the organization. It will help in creating a lot of productive workforce, where in terms of the wages, in terms of the social security, the kind of benefits that will get implemented. uh, Another important piece which I would like to highlight is, since this labor code is now already in front of us, right, and it's already got a green flag from the ministry, right, we need to invest in compliance readiness, right? So proactiveness becomes the core here. Workforce planning, which got diluted over the year, now it becomes very crucial, right? And at the same time, since you and I, we're talking a lot about the digital, which is now here. So hence this particular process of implementation of the entire labor code will by default help us to bring a lot of digitalization in terms of the HR processes. I think that becomes the core of this particular code, and at the organization level, they have to start thinking, talking, and at the same time creating a clear-cut milestones which they would like to present for their organization to make it 100% compliant as per the labor code which got launched recently.
Yeah, this is very important. I think, thank you for breaking this down into some of these very actionable points that can be low hanging fruits for organizations. And key things that I can take away right now is there are rules that the states have already sort of published. It's time to start looking at that and starting with the basics, like you rightly said. You've mentioned training the HR and the payroll and the teams that are going to be behind this really, and at the same time really going back into the focus on workforce planning, into really being able to put your act together on the documentation, on focus on compliance, investment in compliance, and the processes. I think these are some very important points that you've made, Ritesh. Just a follow up question on that, because this is a very intriguing question in itself. In 12 to 24 months, what do you think would be some of the most immediate top three things that HR leaders should be looking at?
I think the right time, because I'm sure as a HR, we know that the increments are on way, right? It's the right time when you can implement the wage code. If in case you need a restructuring in terms of the overall, either the permanent or the contractual workforce you're looking at, so that will give a levy. There is a lot of awareness campaign that need to be created within the organization so that each and every employee are very much aware about why and what exactly will be the impact. That's the second piece. Third piece is the kind of impact which will going to come on the business, right? That can be absorbed very easily because still you have quarter four left, right? So if these three things are intact, I believe most of the business and business heads, they will agree to the fact that this is not a choice now. It's already now it's a law, and we all have to comply with it. For the HR practitioner, if you ask me, Kaushiki, my request is that the we should not look this as a law now because it's now simplified. My only request will be that it's a mind shift, mindset change, which is now expected from the HR practitioners, which will make their life much easier, and at the same time it will be more like a playbook, the entire labor code, which will be helping the new generations who are joining the workforce, who are joining the organization, and they will be able to practice it in a day-to-day life.
Very, very important points. Thank you so much, Ritesh. And again, to the listeners, if you'd like to explore this topic in more details, you can read Ritesh's booklet on the labor codes, available on the Bombay Chamber website and the LinkedIn page after this podcast. Ritesh, thank you so much. We've come to a close of this podcast. It was really interesting, and I know that this is not even scratching the surface technically. When you've the kind of research that you've done, I'm sure there's a lot more to be uncovered, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people actually reaching out to you after this podcast. So we wish you good luck with that. But thank you so much for being on this podcast and sharing some very important insights with us.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Koshki, for giving me this opportunity, and looking forward for great work and getting this implemented across the country. Thank you. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much. So that brings us to the close of this episode. This is Kaushiki Srivastava signing off. Thank you.